Greetings, everyone. It's a red Sunday. It's the 5th of December. As part of our political education, we are looking into the Zimbabwe exemption permit holders, looking into, in particular, the history of migrant labor in South Africa and the parts of the SADC region, and also the state of unemployment in South Africa. So I want to draw a distinction because the Minister of Home Affairs said there are 178,000 Zimbabweans who are holders of special permits. He did not give a breakdown on the holders of these permits in terms of the categories that they belong to. We know as a fact that there are those that are holders of ZEP under the work category, others under the study permit category, and then others under the business category. So it would not be correct to say 178,000 holders of Zimbabwe exemption permits are working in South Africa, meaning that they contribute to unemployment in South Africa, as is the debate that is dominating social media. Because if you have 178,000, you have a good chunk that is in business, running their own businesses, which we'll talk to some other time, and the others that are starting who were issued permits for purposes of starting under ZEP. So it therefore means that you have less of the 178,000 who are holders of ZEP who are actually in the job market in South Africa. But we also demonstrate, as we discuss here, that even those 178,000, assuming all of them were working, you will know that these workers are registered with the Department of Labor. Every worker, the majority of the workers, if I were to put in that way, who are holders of ZEP, who are working, they are registered. So it is known how many holders of ZEP are working. So therefore, and these that are working, they've been part of the economy for the last decade. So the job losers, as indicated by Statistics South Africa, which will go into and demonstrate how South Africa has lost the jobs. It also means that those who are holders of ZEP have also lost the jobs, because it is a fact that a number of ZEP holders, though we do not have the statistics, lost their jobs, particularly during the pandemic in 2020 and in 2021. And our fear has been that if the permits were to be renewed, and the condition for renewal of the permit should be proof of employment, we'll certainly have quite a number of ZEP holders who will not have who will not be able to submit a proof of employment because they lost the jobs in the last year or two since the pandemic started. So I am Mabuto Nicholas Mabena, General Secretary of the Zimbabwe Communist Party. It's a red Sunday. We'll just try to be less than an hour because we know that other comrades are struggling with the data for them to watch long videos for our Red Sunday. Please like the video, subscribe, and circulate, and write your comments so that we engage. The Department of Labor in South Africa says 4% of migrants constitute the South African population. It is 4%. Unfortunately, I forgot, I must apologize, to get the latest figures of the South African population, which is over 50 million. So 4% of migrants constitute the South African population. 7% of the labor force is drawn from the migrant community. This 7%, it is not drawn from Zimbabwean migrants. It is drawn from the migrant community. That means those from the SADC region who are in South Africa, those from the rest of the continent, from Asia and elsewhere, constitute 7% of the population. And assuming, as the Statistics South Africa says here, which we'll get into, that 14.3 million. There's 14.3 million workforce in South Africa. 14.3 million. Assuming 178,000 holders of ZEP are all employed. So if we're to assume that all 178,000 are working, which of course we have said some are in the business category, some are in the starting category. They are not employed, they are not part of the workforce. But let's just assume for a moment that they are all working. That will constitute 1.2% of the total labor force, which is 14.3 million in South Africa. That will be from Zimbabwe on. But we have said there's a chunk of those that are running businesses. There are those that are starting. So certainly the holders of ZEP might actually be less than a percentage who are part of the South African workforce. Because the workforce is 3 million. Statistics South Africa published a quarterly labor survey, third quarter for 2021. It says a number, it then gives a figure of those that lost employment, says the number of unemployed decreased by 660,000 in the third quarter. People that lost jobs, 660,000, which brings the number of the total labor force 14.3 million. And then the number of unemployed decreased by 183,000, bringing to 7.6 million from the second quarter. That's the number of the which decreased the unemployed. And then Statistics South Africa says number of discouraged work seekers, those that have given up to look for a job because they do not think that they will ever find a job. They've basically given up for one reason or another. Those they are 545,000. This number of discouraged work seekers, 545,000, representing 16.4%. Those that are not economic active, other than being discouraged for looking for employment, not economic active for one reason or another, it increased by 443%, 443,000, meaning is 3.3%. This in the 2 quarters, resulting in a net increase of 998,000. So this 443,000, which constitute 3.3%, is both for the second and the third quarter of 2021. And then unemployment increased by 0.5% in the third quarter, which is 34.9%. So currently in South Africa, unemployment sits at 34.9%. Let's then look into different sectors. We know which we'll deal with a bit later as we draw to conclusion. The sectors that migrants, mainly from Zimbabwe, low skill, who are holders of ZEP, are working in, or in which sectors they work in. So let's just briefly look into sector by sector, about 3 of them that have decreased, and they give figures. But of course, there was an increase in the finance. It is the only sector that recorded an increase, where there was an increase of employment of 138,000. I'm not sure, but this is what Statistics South Africa says. I've seen around Greater Johannesburg some banks closing down their branches. So that means it has no effect in the employment of those that work in finance. And then there was a decrease in the trade sector. In the trade sector, it recorded 309,000. So there was a decrease in unemployment in the trade sector of 309,000. Then the foreign sector, community and social services, it decreased by 210,000. Then in construction, and private households. Private households, this is where most migrants work of low skill as domestic workers, decreased by 65,000. Let's just look into five provinces, province by province, five provinces. In Northern Cape, there was an increase of employment in Northern Cape by 19,000. Then there was a decrease in the following four provinces. In Gauteng, it was 200,000. In Northwest, 128,000. In KZN, 123,000. In Limpopo, 112,000. So we have said that the holders of ZEP as 178,000. This is the number given by the Minister of Home Affairs when he did the interview after the announcement was made by Cabinet. So because you have ZEP holders who are in three categories: study, work, and business. So it means that the number of ZEP holders who are in the job market in South Africa, one would argue that it is less than a percentage. Because if we were to assume that 178,000, all of them were working, when you have a 14.3 million labor force in South Africa, that will constitute 1.2%. I asked my comrades who are mathematicians to do the calculations. I didn't do these calculations. If my calculations are wrong, please blame my mathematician comrades. But so the point is, it is less than a percentage. And those that are in the workforce, they are also in different sectors of the economy. The less than 178,000. If we are to take out those that are running businesses, if we are to take out the students, some students who are actually in universities study towards critical skills. If we were to take out those, so you have less than a percentage. Some of these, they are professionals in that less than a percentage. Professionals who are educators, who are lawyers, who are journalists, and other professions. You then have uh, people of low skill, who work in the hospitality industry, in restaurants. You have people of low skill who work in the construction industry, which the construction, according to Statistics South Africa, the construction industry shared jobs in the third quarter, as the report was presented in the third quarter. And then we have those that are working in private homes as domestic workers. And again, that sector also shared jobs. So I have said in the beginning that all who the Statistics South Africa says lost jobs. But Statistics South Africa did not put ZEP in their separate category because they are part of the labor force, which is 4.3 million in South Africa. And they lost also jobs. But we don't have the percentage in terms of how many lost their jobs. Now, this is where the main crunch of the matter is. We all know that employers employ undocumented migrants to exploit them. That is the reality that you should not run away from. You had, before the granting of these special permits in 2010, which were known as the DZP, Documentation Zimbabwe Project, before these were issued, the beneficiaries of these permits were also working under difficult conditions where they were exploited. When they received these permits, they had to move out of the jobs where they were being exploited. And they moved to better jobs where they will negotiate for better wages. Yes, we are having challenges in having every ZEP holder to join trade unions. There are some who have joined trade unions, but there are some who are still resisting for one reason or another, which we are working on to join trade unions. But it has been difficult in the last decade to exploit a holder of a ZEP by the employee. The employer does not use what we call scab labor by hiring or using ZEP holders as scab labor. They use undocumented migrants. So if a ZEP holder loses their jobs, whether because they are demanding better wages, whether they are demanding better working conditions. When we recorded a video last time when we were talking about domestic workers, that some of them work 14 hours, some of them 15 hours. Many of those are people that are not documented. So if the government says it does not renew the ZEP as it has taken this position, this does not necessarily mean in what you call the low skill sector, when people of low skill are employed as general workers in the shops, as domestic workers, and so forth. It does not mean they will be replaced by South Africans, because the South Africans will also demand the same rights like the ZEP. This is why the employers are very quick to say, the Department of Home Affairs or government has announced that your permit will not be renewed. If you do not bring a permit, we are not going to take you next year in 2021, in 2022 in January. It's not because they do not want to employ a ZEP holder. It's because they want to replace, in the main, to replace a ZEP holder with a migrant who is not documented. While we do not have statistics of undocumented migrants, which the Department of Labor, I'm not sure whether the 7% of the migrant in the workforce speaks also of undocumented migrants in the farms, in restaurants, as domestic workers, and in all sectors of the economy. I'm not very sure, but they are only talking about 7%. But we are of the view, even though we've never done statistics, that you have more undocumented migrants from Zimbabwe than holders of ZEP. So if holders of ZEP, say, are removed because they are not able to move to other visas, those of low skill, it means they are going to be replaced by undocumented migrants who will not negotiate for better working conditions as their counterparts who are holders of ZEP are doing, which therefore means this does not resolve the problem in the job market or unemployment or opening opportunities, for the South Africans. It does not follow that. The only sectors where an opportunity for the South Africans will be opened if visas or if ZEP are not renewed are the professionals, are your teachers, yours, and then in other areas, are possibly your journalists. Because if by January 2022, a teacher does not have SARS, a South African Council of Educators, will not be allowed in class. So it will require that a person that has a SARS should then be in class, which in the most case might be a South African. So in that middle class a job market, which we will call middle class for the purposes of this discussion, it is where that South Africans can benefit. But that is a small percentage, as we have demonstrated that assuming 178,000 are all gainfully employed, they will constitute 1.2% of the job market in South Africa. But because they are in three categories, so they are less than a percentage. So your professionals, if teachers of Zimbabwean origin who are not able to move to other visas, are then to not return to class because they cannot, in the next 12 months, migrate to other visas or renew SARS. It means only a few professional South Africans who are educators will then occupy that, those vacancies or those positions. But it does not mean the majority of South Africans, as it is being portrayed, will then be able to occupy the positions that will be left out by holders of ZEP who are of low skill. It does not follow that. As we are drawing to conclusion, let us then look at how the history of migrant labor, just a brief. You know that during apartheid and during Rhodesia, or even during Rhodesia, Nyasaland, which we discussed in one of the videos, is that the apartheid regime, even the Rhodesian regime, will go to neighboring countries. In the case of Rhodesia, Southern Rhodesia, which is now Zimbabwe, they will go to Malawi, Zambia, and bring people to work mainly at the national railways, work in the farms. In my hometown, Bulawayo, we have suburbs, Sizinda, Mabutweni, which are known to be suburbs that are populated by people of Malawian origin. You will also remember during the 2000 elections and 2002 presidential elections, where such individuals who are Zimbabweans, whose parents are of foreign origin, of Malawian, of Mozambians, of Mozambicans, were told not to participate in an election unless they renounced their citizenship. This, of course, was political. It was because their parents came in as migrant labor to work in different sectors which were identified. Same with the apartheid regime. You will know that many South Africans during the apartheid regime, they will not work as security officers or security guards, because at the time, it had connotation that if you are working as a security officer or as a security guard, you are advancing the interests of the apartheid regime. So when undocumented migrants or people of low skill who then crossed into South Africa at that time, many of them, they worked in the security sector or in the security industry. Then there are those that then were recruited within the SADC region to work specifically in the farming sector as farm workers. You know that those that are in Bedbridge, there was special permit that was being granted to workers that are from around the port, around Bedbridge. They will come in as seasonal workers, either to pick up oranges or whatever was being harvested, as seasonal workers to work in the farms. And of course, the popular one, Wenel, where people were mobilized from the rest of the region to work in the mines, to say this is a sector where migrants should work in, provide their labor in those different sectors. And the South African government, which I will not go into detail on that, also in 2016, 2017, recognized that there are sectors that, yes, you can allow migrants to work in, because it realized that you have people of low skill whom you cannot willy-nilly deport, but you can accommodate them, people of low skill. So in terms of the low percentage of migrants who might not be able to move to other visas, it's a small percent, is less than 1%, people of low skill. Yes, the number, when you say 198,000, is a big number. Yes, we are agreeing. But when you break it down, then because the perception out there is that, and the reality on the ground does not point to that direction. I want to hear your views on this subject. Please subscribe and like the video, circulate where I am it's a bit cloudy. My rain network might be having problems, so maybe my video might not be clear. Thank you so much. Goodbye.